Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a Mexican meatball soup called Albondigas. If you guys are interested in finding out how I make this, go ahead and stay tuned. It's very delicious. This recipe probably will serve maybe 5 or 6 people, so you could always change it around to however many people you have. But go ahead and keep watching and I'll give you the recipe. And don't forget to like and subscribe for future videos on my channel for cooking, fashion, homeschool, everything that I've got going. As far as ingredients, you will need ground beef, carrots, cilantro, zucchini, potatoes, onion, garlic powder, onion powder, caldo de res, and the tomate seasoning, long grain rice, salt, and then some sort of spicy seasoning. You will also need a larger pot filled with water. So to start off with, you're going to put your pot on maybe medium to medium low. To start the boiling process, you're going to put in your tomate seasoning. I just eyeball everything. I don't have exact measurements. I put that in. I also put in the caldo de res seasoning, and I just, again, eyeball these. You can kind of add and see what it tastes like. Once it kind of boils in there, you can see what it tastes like. I also add in the onion powder, the garlic powder, and the salt. And I let all of that come to a boil for a while before I put anything else in there, so that way the water can start to absorb all of the seasonings that I'm using. Next, I'm going to start with making the actual albondigas. I'm going to put in salt, onion powder, garlic powder, some of the spicy seasoning that you had. This is from my local Mexican store. You may have to look around for something you like. Also add in the long grain rice. Again, I don't measure, I just eyeball and kind of put in what looks like it's going to be enough. I have here about a pound of ground beef, but depending on the amount that you want to make, you may need to add more or less, or to your liking, I suppose. And then I'm also going to cut up a half an onion and put it into really small pieces so that I can mix it in to the meatballs themselves. And then after I cut this up, I'm going to mix everything in with the pound of ground beef, and I'm going to make the meatballs. I'm going to kind of pack them enough that they don't fall apart in the water while you're cooking them. To a pound of ground beef, I usually get about 14 meatballs. If you want to make yours bigger, then obviously you'll have less, or you can make them smaller. I probably make mine about the size of a little bit smaller than a golf ball, I suppose. So you can kind of judge from there how many, or maybe how many pounds of beef you'll need, or that kind of thing. Otherwise, you can always go much smaller than that if you want to. And it might go a little bit farther, but I like this size because then, as you're eating it, you can cut it in half and it's pretty much the size of a bite. So you guys can judge from there, but then I'm just going to go ahead and roll the rest of these. Again, I get about 14 to a pound of ground beef with what I'm doing, and then I'm going to go ahead and put them in the water because by now my water is nice and hot and almost boiling, and the seasoning is already all mixed into the water, so it's a perfect time for it to start cooking in there. And so I'm just going to start with the meatballs then. And now, as you can see, the water is quite hot at this point, not quite boiling. And so I just give it a nice stir before I add in the meatballs. I will stir it all around, and then I will one by one add the meatballs into the pot there. And I try and do it semi-carefully so that they don't break apart when you drop them in the water or anything. And then also I don't get a lot of splash of your broth or anything going everywhere. So just go ahead and do it slowly, one by one, kind of around the pot, and then you'll let it sit for a couple minutes before you want to stir them around, so that way they don't break apart with you using the spoon to stir them. Now that they have been boiling for about an hour, I'm going to go ahead and give them another stir and move things around. And then I'm going to move on to the next set of vegetables, the carrots and the potatoes that I'm going to be adding next. Now I'm going to peel and cut up 3 carrots and 3 potatoes. This I kind of eyeball as well, depending on the size of your carrots and the size of your potatoes, how many you want to add in. I absolutely love the potatoes, so I always like to add a little extra of those. I'm not the biggest fan of carrots, but I like them for the flavor that they add. So I like to make sure that there's kind of an equal amount of everything in there. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of eyeball these chunks. I know that they're not even by any means. I just try and do mostly bite-sized pieces. And so then I will do that with all the carrots, and then I will do that with the potatoes as well. And then I will go ahead and add those slowly into the pot. And then I will let these 2 items cook in there with the meatballs for another hour before I add anything else. And please excuse the spillover I had there. My pot's a little extra full. Now that the potatoes and carrots have been cooking for an hour, I'm going to go ahead and cut up the zucchini. What I do is I usually cut it in half lengthwise, and then I cut them in slices, in about bite-sized slices. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut up the cilantro, kind of finely, I guess you could say. You can leave it in bigger chunks if you wanted to. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this in the soup for just about 30 minutes or so. The zucchini, since it's a lot softer already, cooks pretty quickly. So unless you want it really mushy, you only want to do it about 30 minutes, and then you want to turn off your stove and let it sit for a few minutes and then go ahead and serve it. If you do it too much longer than that, your zucchini is gonna start to really fall apart and be all over inside the soup. Maybe some people like it that way, but we prefer to have it still as a bite-sized piece. So you'll just go ahead and do about 30 minutes, and then you can go ahead and shut off your stove. And while it's cooking, you're still gonna want to be doing stirring and things like that. And here's the end result. Enjoy.